Welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I am Russell Brown, and joining me today to talk quarterbacks, Mark Schofield. Mark, how we doing, brother?
Russell, man, it's good to be back on with you. And I will say, it is much nicer and more pleasant to be on without Mr. Michael J. Kist. I will say that. The last time I was on with you guys, I had to deal with that guy yapping in my ear, and I get enough of that, in the DMs. I don't need that on the podcast. So.
Yeah, he's a dangerous dude, man. He is a dangerous dude. He just, doesn't shut up, talks way too much history, but he's a good guy. But he is an Eagles fan, and he will never let you live down.
He will never let me live that down. And he is such a history guy. He was just fooling around at work today, and he put up a March Madness-style bracket of Roman emperors just for his own grins and giggles. I'm just like, man, you need to do something else, buddy. So
I can't do it, man. I've tried. I don't know. I liked history in high school, but now that I'm getting older and I've just put focus on work and football and kid and wife, I can't do history.
The brain can only take up so much. And for me, it's like, 45% quarterbacks, maybe another 45%, scheme stuff, and then 10% Toto. And there's like no room for anything else.
Yeah. So. Yeah, well, that is true. You are the Toto guy for Twitter and just the draft and just in life. I mean, and to be fair, Africa by Toto is a great song. I mean,
it is a great song. And what's amazing about being sort of the weird Toto guy is that anytime there's like, the latest is the America's Got Talent episode where a gospel choir does a rendition of Africa by Toto. And I get people on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, like people I know, people I don't know, complete strangers, just sending it to me. So I'll get like 75 notifications in the span of like 10 minutes. And it's just people sending me like Toto covers. So.
Oh man. Well, I know I've done it, but I was hammered drunk. So I gotta say it is hilariously enjoyable when cause I know you guys did it when you were like out. You guys were like out at a bar and Toto came on and you like sent me a video. I love seeing stuff like that. It just warms my heart. And I will say, when my wife and I go to see Toto this November, I will have to break my no selfie video rule. And because when they play Africa, if I don't post a selfie at that moment, people are going to be like, it never happened. I just have to do it. Yeah, no, you have to now. You are in the book, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You're talking about things that warm your heart. Things that warm my heart is seeing my dude Mark making moves, and that is the Big Blue View. That's with SB Nation, correct?
That is correct, my friend.
That is awesome, and you are joining them. Are you going to still be doing Locked On Patriots? I know you're doing Matt Waldman, the rookie scouting portfolio. So just give everybody a breakdown of what you got going on, and I know you got some more stuff coming, but we won't reveal that. So go ahead.
Right. Here's what I have been cleared. I've been declassified, so I can talk about these gigs. I will still be at InsideThePylon.com doing draft QB stuff and all that fun stuff. Matt and I are going to be doing some stuff over at the Matt Waldman RSP, MattWaldmanRSP.com. I'll be doing a couple of pieces a week, sort of quick hitter type things on quarterback play. I might even spread my wings a little bit and maybe delve into wide receivers. Imagine that. And we're also going to be doing, at least one video a month, RSP film room style, like we used to do back in the day on probably quarterback, stuff like that. So that's that. Over at Big Blue View, part of the SB Nation network, I will be doing a lot of quarterback stuff over there. Obviously my debut piece, which came out this week on reasons to still believe in Eli Manning, came over and sort of landed with a nice little thud, I'd say, over there, because it seems like Giants fans are definitely in one of two camps. Either Eli still has it or Eli should retire yesterday. And so there were certain people that read that piece and thought, why did you hire this guy? Because it's clear he doesn't know what he's talking about. So I've got that stuff going on. Like you said, there are some more things that I'll be probably rolling out in the next couple of days or so. I'm going to be doing some stuff over at Steelers Depot. My good buddy Alex Casora over there gave me a little platform to do some Steelers stuff. So, and I will still be doing Locked On Patriots. I will be trying to make myself the busiest man in draft Twitter world. And
Yeah, and I saw the Steelers Depot stuff. I actually forgot to talk about that before the show, and I saw that on Twitter before we jumped on. Congrats on that. I love the piece with Juju Smith-Schuster.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, all those shallow crosses. It's good stuff. So the best way to stay up to date with all of Mark's stuff, guys, is go to Twitter,
click that follow button at Mark Schofield. It's very simple, and you'll get great stuff about Toto, but also even better football stuff. And finally, the New York Giants have a better quarterback than Eli Manning, and that's with Mark Schofield. So it's awesome.
I mean,
you haven't won Super Bowls, but that's okay. It doesn't matter.
I will say that my college football team was 1-0 in games in which I was the starting quarterback.
Exactly. Dude, you're undefeated. You're batting 1,000.
Now, to be fair, to give it the context it deserves, I was pulled after I threw my second interception when we were still losing, and the starter came back in on one ankle because the other one was basically Kurt Schilling style. And he threw 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter, and we won. Now, again, still 1-0 in games in which I was the starting QB, so I'll take that to my grave.
That's all that matters. And you're a step ahead of me. You played college football, so that's a step ahead of me. I didn't do that, so
Division III, it like barely counts, okay? It's kind of like high school plus, you know? I mean, I'm pretty sure had we gone down and played some of the bigger schools down in like the Dallas area, like the bigger high schools down there, I don't know if we'd have won. It would have been competitive, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, it is crazy too, like just how, and I know we're totally not even getting into what we want to talk about yet.
It's July, who cares?
Yeah, it is July. And it's such a boring time of the year too, but it's crazy how much different football is just from like Texas and in the South than where it is like where you are on the East Coast, where I'm at in Michigan. It's just so much different, and it's crazy to me.
Yeah, and what's really strange is like when I grew up outside the Boston area, and when I grew up, like football was like king, like it still mattered out there. And now, like I go back to my hometown, and football is like the third most popular sport in that school now. And the school actually got dropped a couple of divisions in its football program. Like when I was there, we were like D1, like the big time. Now it doesn't matter. Kids are playing other sports, and like that's fine. It's just interesting to see that sort of change over time and over like generations. And I'm sure we could get into reasons why and all that fun stuff, but nobody wants to talk about CTE this July. So no.
Yeah, no, I'm good. But what I do want to talk about is quarterbacks for the 2019 NFL draft. And I know that's light years away. It's a totally different planet, and we'll get more in detail, obviously, as the season goes along. But it's always nice to get into the preseason stuff and the preliminary stuff. And with these quarterbacks, I don't know. I've been studying this Pac-12 conference for the last week and a half, and I watched some Justin Herbert, and I watched Jake Browning, and I watched Manny Wilkins, who I liked a lot. And I did find some stuff that you wrote about on Inside the Pylon regarding Manny Wilkins. So I do want to ask before we get in any further, what are your thoughts on Manny Wilkins from Arizona State?
I liked him a lot, when I watched him. And, the piece you wrote, I sort of talk about, how he sort of handled himself in the pocket. And what's interesting is a guy that's getting a lot of buzz right now, and this is a different conference even, but Brian Lewerke, back from Michigan State. People are really excited about him. And when I sort of studied him, I saw plays where he really like broke the pocket when he shouldn't. He runs himself into pressure. And that's what I really liked about Wilkins. And there were a couple of times when, he's an athletic enough guy where if he wanted to, he could certainly break the pocket, break contain, and make something happen on the move, either with his legs or throwing downfield with his arm. But I highlighted these 2 plays where even with that opportunity, he decides, no, I'm going to stop. I'm going to climb the pocket. And on one play, he misses a throw. Okay, the next play later in that game faces the same situation. Again, he steps up and then drills in a nice throw. And that's the kind of thing like I love to see, Russell, in sort of a younger quarterback because, he realizes that, no, this is still the right thing to do. Sometimes when you're a quarterback and you make a mistake like that, you might do it differently the next time and sort of get yourself into some bad habits. But I didn't see that from him. So I really sort of like him. I think he's got a great arm, good downfield ball, like that about him a lot, good velocity on his throws, good arm talent. And so, the Pac-12 has some interesting quarterbacks. You mentioned the 2 that are going to get a lot of attention. But I think Wilkins and then obviously Khalil Tate, who's probably a year away, I'd say. I'm not so sure he comes out unless he has a monster season. But there's some interesting quarterbacks to watch in the Pac-12 this year. Just because Darnold's gone, just because Rosen's gone, doesn't mean you should sleep on these guys.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like with Manny Wilkins, like I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers, but like there were throws when I watched him play Oregon that he would roll to his right and he would fire one in there and like extend plays beyond the pocket. And it was very similar and very Aaron Rodgers-esque. And it was like, I'm not saying he's him, but I just was like, that was pretty impressive. Now, he's very far away from being a Rodgers-type quarterback, no doubt about that. But like you mentioned, missing a throw, throwing it deep and missing, and then going back and throwing that exact throw. I watched him do that exact same thing, like back-to-back throws, missed one going deep, very next throw, put it in a bucket. And it was like, that is impressive to me. Very good weight transfer with his lower body from his back foot to his front foot, and just – I was very impressed with him. So I think he's definitely a sleeper to pay attention to. I really love that you talked about Brian Lewerke from Michigan State, a proud alum. I can't deny it.
There you go, man.
Yeah, and he's very, very good. I think he can really take off this year. He might be the best quarterback since maybe ever under Mark D'Antonio. We'll see. And we'll get into those guys as far as a general feel, because I really want to talk about the Big Ten with Clayton Thorson and Trace McSorley and Brian Lewerke. But I want to stay down the path of the Pac-12, and I want to stay with the guy that maybe is the consensus number one quarterback, and that's Justin Herbert out of Oregon, the redshirt junior. What were your feels with him if you watched him yet, and what were some things that you saw?
Well, in watching him and looking at, a couple of games on him, I definitely liked sort of the athletic ability. That was one of the things that really sort of jumped out at me right away was, athletic ability at the quarterback position. It's not a critical trait or anything like that, but it's certainly something that you'd like to have. It's sort of that extra thing that can give you confidence that a guy's going to be able to make plays when structure breaks down. Footwork, he's a spread quarterback. He's got spread quarterback feet. Sometimes there are times when he steps in the bucket, but he can still bring velocity. He had a throw against Arizona where, he steps in the bucket. The footwork's a mess, but he still brings it. He's got arm talent. He's got good touch on the deep ball. He's got good feel for the pocket. Another throw against Arizona that stood out that way. I like his ability to sort of that set and reset situation where sometimes as a quarterback you get moved off your spot, whether it's interior pressure or edge pressure. You've got to move and quickly reset yourself and throw. Sometimes you see quarterbacks, their accuracy drops in that situation because it's a little bit of a mess. Even though his footwork can sometimes be off on those set and reset situations, he's still able to deliver with accuracy. Moves well in the pocket. He can improvise. I like that. He throws well on the move. I like that. He can make some anticipation throws. Early in the game against Oregon State, one of the games I watched on him, he had two really nice anticipation throws. That was something that really stood out with Sam Darnold. When you see college quarterbacks, a lot of them don't have that ability to sort of throw a receiver open. Justin Herbert can do that. He's got anticipation in the deep game too. A lot of times quarterbacks wait too long. Sometimes they end up where they can't get the ball out there. But if you anticipate it well, he can do that. And so those were some of the things I really liked about him. I see why people are high on him. As far as some weaknesses, he does miss some throws when he's pressured. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see him clean that up a bit. There's some situational awareness concerns. He had a 3rd and 3 situation against Oregon State where he had a throw in the flat. He doesn't take it. He waits too long. And he sort of runs himself into trouble and forces a throw late. I want to see him clean that up as well. But he's definitely somebody. I understand why people are high on him coming into this year.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that as far as like making sure that the situational awareness is there, because there was times that I felt like just he could have made a better read or a better choice. And there were times that he was forcing throws and staring down a receiver. I think getting better at scanning that field and going through the progressions can get there. And I think that's with my piece, I talked about having the tools, and I think he's got those tools, and I think he can take a step forward. But the biggest thing too is, coming back from that broken collarbone, where will he be at? I think he can be just fine. I don't think it's as serious as the shoulder surgery that Jake Browning. It just seems like it decimated his career, because 2 years ago Jake Browning was lights out. I mean, he was great. He wasn't, he wasn't elite, but he was great. He was very, very good. I guess I shouldn't have said lights out, but Herbert, very good. I like what he does. I like what he brings to the table. Everybody knows who my top quarterback is. That's Ryan Finley. What are your thoughts on him? I mean, the NC State guy and what he brings to the table, I feel like he's been in college now for like 8 years.
Right. And what's interesting, Russell, about Finley is, I'm not one for a lot of like hot takes or anything like that. But if I were to have, say, a lukewarm take about this 2019 class, it's this. It's that Ryan Finley is who many thought Mason Rudolph was. in that I really sort of like Ryan Finley. I think he's very clean mechanically. He does a very good job sort of in that pre-snap phase of identifying leverage, schematic advantages, coverage advantages, things like that. He can move and freeze safeties with his eyes. Very accurate in the short intermediate areas of the field. He can make anticipation throws. He can make half field or full field reads. Great job at keeping his eyes downfield in sort of those pressure scramble drill type situations. Last year, he even took a leap ahead. He was impressive at all levels in the field. Very nice deep ball, even with trash at his feet. I wrote about that or did a video on that. One of his first throws against Arizona State in the Sun Bowl. Good with timing, good with placement, good with velocity, even good against the blitz. I just think this guy's a very, very, very solid quarterback. And, in terms of things I'd want to see him improve, there are times when he gets a little bit panicky in the pocket at times. There are times when it seemed like NC State getting put too much on his plate. There were times even in 2016 where they sort of took him off the field at times.
Yeah.
But now he's improving in those areas. He definitely improved some from 2016 to 2017. And I think if he has another solid season, like this guy could really be QB1.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, in my opinion, he is. I think the pre-snap reads are there. And I'm not saying he's on like the Josh Rosen level, but the way I felt about Josh Rosen pre-snap reads wise going into August last year is similar to how I feel about Ryan Finley right now. And I felt this way about Ryan Finley for a while. I've been talking about him for basically a year now. I wrote about him on breakingfootball.com. I've wrote about him on cover1.net. I've put him all over Twitter. And it's just, I think that this guy has the tools to be a very good quarterback. And I think that there's some question marks as far as people are saying, or scouts are saying, that when you read the general consensus, and we never know how true this is. Sometimes it could be media just trying to create a storyline, but there's like character concerns. How good of a teammate is he? We won't know that. Maybe we see him in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and maybe we get an idea. Maybe we get a chance to talk to him and get an idea of who he is and what he's all about, and maybe we can get that feel. But like you mentioned, anticipation throws, a pretty good arm. He can put some velocity under the ball, and I really like everything that he brings to the table. And I think the throwing motion's good, and there's just times that one of the biggest things I think is just ball placement. I think there's times when he's throwing it deep down the field. Sometimes it's somewhat behind the receiver, and that could be more so of an arm strength thing. But it's just, he's got Calvin Harbin. Jacoby Myers is a name to pay attention to in that offense. There is no Jalen Samuels anymore. There is no Nyheim Hines. So it's interesting to see that. But he's got his receivers back, and they should be just fine. And I think he's the guy that could be – it shouldn't be a surprise, and I think that it's good that we're talking about it, but it shouldn't be a surprise that this guy could emerge as the best quarterback of the bunch. Is there a name that we haven't gone over? I know we're going to get into 3 or 4 other names as well, but is there a name that we haven't listed that you really like outside of Herbert and Finley?
I mean, there are a couple of different guys that I could talk about, and just by means of background, I've got, I watched just about 40 guys over, May and June, multiple, like 4, 5, 6 games on each guy, to get a feel of where they are. I like Brett Rippon for Boise State, and I've liked him for a while now, and he's kind of my prototype. He's the type of quarterback I gravitate towards, where he does a lot of stuff on structure, does a lot of the little things with anticipation, manipulating defenders, moving guys with his eyes. Those are the quarterbacks that I tend to gravitate to, more of your traditional pocket passer types. That's just kind of who I am. That's my subjective nature to it. So, that's just, one guy. I like Easton Stick. I think Easton Stick is sort of Logan Woodside plus. And Logan Woodside, we saw him get drafted in the 7th round of a good quarterback class. So I think Easton Stick's probably going to get himself drafted. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him sort of rise up some boards, get himself into maybe earlier day 3, maybe now, probably just early day 3 type would be the ceiling for him, but a guy that I do like. Working through the mix, Andrew Ford at UMass, left-handed quarterback. He's a guy that, he went into Tennessee. He played pretty well in that game until he got knocked out with an injury. Obviously played very well against BYU on the road as well. UMass looks to be improving. Keep an eye on him. Working through my list, Taryn Christian, South Dakota State. He's a kid that I've been watching for a while now. If you like FCS quarterbacks, he's another guy to watch. I do believe that South Dakota State and North Dakota State play each other this year. That will be a fun game to watch. Two nice quarterbacks there. Devlin Hodges, the kid from Samford. I mean, he's a kid that went into Georgia, and his teammates did him no favors, but he stared them down, made some throws against them. Also had a game in the playoffs against Kennesaw State. Similar situation. His teammates just weren't helping him at all, but he's a little bit of an undersized guy, but can certainly make some throws. A couple of other guys. Obviously, we got to talk about, Tyree Jackson.
He's on the list.
I think he might be, who Josh Allen. People thought Josh Allen was. He's basically Josh Allen with a better understanding of time and rhythm and touch, despite having worse mechanics. And he might be a better athlete than Josh Allen. Other guys. Case Cookis from Northern Arizona is interesting. Kyle Schumer from Vanderbilt. I got a piece about him.
Yeah.
He's an interesting guy to watch. Couple names on the list. Brad Mays from Lehigh. He was an interesting guy to watch. I'm not so sure he's really got an NFL future in front of him. Justice Hansen from Arkansas State. Keep an eye on him. He's been there for a while. Very high tempo, up-tempo type offense. Puts up big type numbers. But, this is Russell, I think this could be a really fun class because unlike the past couple of years where it was like, okay, well, Deshaun Watson is probably your QB1 coming into the season. Or last year it was, was it Rosen? Was it Darnold? Was it Josh Allen? Like people knew the top guys. This year it's wide open.
Yeah.
And I think, similar to last year, we're going to learn a lot about these quarterbacks, and we're going to learn a lot about the people that are evaluating them and seeing the different traits that they gravitate towards and things like that. But it's going to be a fun group to watch.
Yeah, and like it kind of reminds me 2 years ago, like when Watson and Trubisky were coming out, like going into that year, some people were even saying, if I remember correctly, they were saying that this might be a so-so class. We don't really know. It's really wide open. We don't know who the top quarterback is, this and that. Kind of reminds me of that. Maybe it's not as much as far as talent goes, but clearly you have done a ton of research, and you guys obviously listening can follow all of this along with Mark Schofield on Twitter at Mark Schofield and read about all these great quarterbacks that he's talking about, quarterbacks from Arkansas State and guys that I don't even know anything about, which is awesome. But what about like Will Grier and Drew Lock? These are two guys that are very much in the buzz. And I saw something as far as Will Grier, and we'll start here. There's a comparison to Baker Mayfield. What are your thoughts on that? Is that any truth to that?
I think that he's going to get that comparison because of the Big 12 aspect, because of the fact that they're both playing against Big 12 defenses. They're both playing in, pretty wide open offenses. One of the things that, stood out, studying Grier was the personal side. He's married with a young daughter. And, that's something that, when you start getting into the sort of character and off the field stuff, that's a check mark, I think, in his favor. So that's something to remember. I think he's great in sort of those scramble drill situations, great vision, the ability to create, how to play like that against Iowa State early in that game. Impressive arm, impressive deep accuracy. I think he's good against the blitz at times as well. Even though he's in that sort of Big 12 offense, people consider it sort of your more spread air raid type offense. He can still give you progression reads. He can still give you full field reads. Very calm against the blitz. He's got a very quick and violent release, which I know that probably isn't the best way to term it, but he's a guy that gets the ball out of his hands incredibly quickly, which, as we all know, is a very good trait to have.
Yes.
Slides well, moves well in the pocket. He can also speed up his process. And what I mean by that is, if you get a blitz, if you get something that you're not expecting, or if it's a situation where you get a coverage breakdown or the rotation of the coverage has a narrow window of time where you got to get the ball out, he's very good at sort of speeding himself up. He's not going to just, I've got a 7-step drop on this play. I've got to take all my 7 steps before I get it out. If he sees a window, he's going to take it. He'll cut his drop short, whatever he has to do to get the ball out. So I really like that about him. One thing that did bother me about him, and this is more a personal thing perhaps than anything, he needs to learn to tuck the football away because he's running out there like he's Randall Cunningham with the ball just all over the place. And I get it. You're out there, you're Brett Favre, you're having fun, right? But you got to learn to tuck the football away. That's something that really sort of bugged me. And, the ball handling aspect. Intermediate accuracy can be spotty at times. His footwork, sloppy, again, spread air raid type quarterback. You
get that. Mechanics, that trail leg is something to watch. He has a bit of a loop and a draw to his motion as well. But yeah, I'm certainly interested in watching him, see if he makes another step forward. I liked him back when he was at UF.
Yeah, so did I.
About him back when he was at UF, and I thought he was sort of that, not a flashy guy or not a flashy quarterback by any means, but a guy that seemed like he was just going to go out there and get the job done. Had some nice throws for Florida when they were off to a really good start before his suspension. And so, yeah, definitely excited to see him this year.
Yeah, no, I like Will Grier a lot, and I know there's a lot of other people in the draft Twitter community that like him as well. And I know that there's just general consensus feel that he could be one of the most talented quarterbacks in this class. And I definitely think it's true because of some of the things that he can do with the tight coverage throws, extending plays beyond the pocket. And, he is efficient with the football, 64.5% completion percentage. So that's very impressive. And, I mean, 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Stats, I don't like going over all of them all the time, but I was impressed with that, even though it is the Big 12, and I know what people say about those defenses, but that's impressive for a guy that when he was playing in the SEC, when he was playing with Florida, and I know there was limited amount of action with the suspension and things, those stats weren't exactly there. And there was some struggling times with that Florida team because there wasn't as much talent, but he's got some talent with West Virginia. So I think he could be a key to them in anything that they do with the Big 12. And then lastly, Drew Lock, as far as anything in depth, what are your thoughts with him? I know there's this Josh Allen comparisons to some people. I've even said it, that he might be Josh Allen 2.0. It's a soft take, but it is what it is. And then some are saying he's Matthew Stafford, which I don't see. I think Stafford was more than a one-read quarterback at Georgia when he was coming out. And while Stafford his first 2 years there at Georgia, he did struggle with accuracy. His last year, he was over 60%. So like his career, he was at 57%. But that last year, he really took a step forward. And I think Drew Lock would have to take those similar steps. And I think Drew Lock is a one-read quarterback at this moment in time, but he's got probably the strongest arm of anybody in this draft.
Yeah, Russell. And, it's interesting because, I spend, May, June, July studying quarterbacks. And so, when I went back to start studying Drew Lock, I went back and started with my notes from last summer when I was watching from last summer. And, when I studied him last summer before last year, I wrote down, great to elite arm talent, like you said. Okay process and speed on RPO type plays, pretty good placement on most throws, can throw some routes with anticipation, pretty good athlete. But, I had a lot more negatives than anything else. I mean, it was a Baylor-esque type offense when you think back to Baylor under, Art Briles, lots of, quick hitch routes, lots of comeback routes, lots of 9 routes and tunnels, and that was basically it. And it's, one read and throw, like you said. Sloppy footwork when he's not in RPO structure, half-field reads, staring down tons of routes. Loves his fastball just like Josh Allen, but he needs to learn sort of touch and feel. And so that's my base. That was my baseline for him coming into then, rewatching him over last season and into this summer. And it seemed like to me, and maybe I'm the only one that saw this, maybe I'm completely wrong, but it almost seemed like he tried almost too much to learn touch, learn feel, take stuff off the fastball because, it seemed to me like he held some throws back. There was a throw against Missouri State, a couple, where he almost like he was trying to use touch too much, like trying to swing wildly in the other direction. And I wrote down a line from the movie Swinners, and I'm dating myself here, but it was like, with this, he doesn't know how to kill the bunny. It's like he's trying to figure out like how to best approach playing the quarterback position.
Yeah.
But I like that he's trying to do that. I like that he's at least trying to figure that out, whereas Josh Allen was like, I'm going to throw this through a brick wall, and I don't care what it says about me. I'd rather see him, Drew Lock trying to like learn touch. I feel like he got a little bit better at reading that middle field open, middle field closed type designs, including on plays where the defense showed him a different coverage. That being said, there are still some issues, manipulation, moving defenders with his eyes. He doesn't do enough of that yet. He still stares down routes. He still locks on 2 targets, pun intended, I guess. And that set, reset, and throw type of thing that I was talking about with Herbert, accuracy dips there. He's not refined enough where if he has to move himself in the pocket, quickly reset and throw,
that he doesn't have that dip in accuracy. He still has a dip there. I'd like to see that sort of get cleaned up and fixed this year. I understand why people might be high on him, because obviously you see the arm and you think, I can make it work. Like we saw, Josh Allen went 7th overall.
Right.
And the big names, Kaiir and people are high on him. And I get why that's going to happen. We just need to see a lot of work. I'm higher on him right now than I was at Josh Allen this time last year. Let's put it that way. Now, is that going to be enough to get him into the first round mix? It wasn't for me with Josh Allen, so I don't know if it'll be enough for me with Drew Lock, absent continued growth, development, and refinement in the year ahead.
Right. And the crazy thing is with all these flaws, he did throw 44 touchdowns, almost 58% completion percentage. So if he just does a little bit of tweaking, like you said, he could be honestly the guy that is the top quarterback. And there is no doubt about it. I mean, he has got everything that you're looking for, just like Justin Herbert. And there's a lot with him right now that it's just not clicking. And if he can get it to click, he could be phenomenal. And I think he's one of those guys that we're looking at it right now, compared to Josh Allen, if we will. And then we get into, October, November, and we're like, all right, this is the guy that we were talking about, that we needed to see. And I'm hoping that's what we see. Are there anything as far as like the Big Ten? I know you like Brian Lewerke, but like Clayton Thorson, Trace McSorley, Shea Patterson. Personally, I don't get the buzz with Shea Patterson by any means. But out of those three, I guess, who's the guy that you think is the guy?
I mean, out of those three, with Patterson, with McSorley, with Thorson, I'm most confident in Thorson being able to make the transition to the National Football League than either of the other guys. I think Trace McSorley is a very, 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 very good college quarterback. And when I was at Big Ten Media Days last year, I remember talking to Tom Allen, Indiana's head coach, and I was asking him, you guys are going to be playing, Penn State at some point this year. What is it about their offense that makes them so difficult to defend? And they had held Saquon Barkley to, I think, like 31 yards, 2 years ago. And I was like, is it Barkley? And the things he can do is like, it's not Barkley. It's not Mike Gesicki. It's number 9. He's the guy that makes that offense go. He's the guy that you've got to stop first. And that just blew my mind, because you wouldn't think that McSorley was the guy as a defensive coordinator that you're going out there and stop. But that's what they went after. And it played out similarly this past year when these two teams met. I went up to, Penn State to watch that game. And I'll tell you, it was electric when Barkley returned that opening kickoff for a touchdown, and he had a great catch and run on the screen. But other than that, they really shut him and that entire offense down until late in the game when McSorley got going and Deshaun Hamilton got going a little bit. He threw a touchdown pass in that game. But when I say that Trace McSorley is a great college quarterback, that means that he's a great college quarterback. I'm not sure that he's going to get beyond that. He's, very much Baker Mayfield light.
Yes.
And I think that eventually, maybe if there's a huge growth there, he could make a leap. But now he's without Gesicki. Now he's without Barkley. Now he's without Deshaun Hamilton. We're really going to get a sense of who he is as a quarterback. And I would be stunned if he played himself into a draftable position. As for Patterson, a lot of people are putting some expectations on him that he's going to come into Michigan and he's going to be in sort of the Harbaugh offense, this more pro-style offense with West Coast type things, and really take some sort of leap. I just don't see it happening.
Me neither.
I'm not really there with him. There are things that he does well as a quarterback. There are things that, endear him to sort of the college game. There are things that he does sort of on RPO style, very minimalist with his drops and with his movement, which helps him at times. Very good at back shoulder throws, good processing on RPO type plays. So again, similar to McSorley, he's very good for the college game, but it's the pro stuff that we're here for. And he drifts on his drops at times. He's very much a see it, throw it type guy where there's almost no anticipation throws. He really has to see it and believe that it's open with his eyes before he'll let go of the football. Ball placement can dip. Very curious decision-making at times, not just as a passer, but as a runner too. I remember a couple of plays where it's like you had an open screen route and then you tried to scramble, and instead of picking up at least 5 yards with the screen, you lost 13 as a runner. Like, what were you thinking? And we just talked about a little bit about Baker Mayfield. And Baker was a guy that I thought at times sought out chaos, where he was going to invite chaos and, panic type situations in the pocket because he thrived in those moments. Patterson invites those situations. He gets himself into trouble at times because he thinks he can thrive in them, but he still doesn't. And that's an issue for him that he's going to have to clean up. And when we get to Thorson, he's a guy that I think took a couple of steps forward last year. I think he's a guy that, really sort of developed last year and, maybe almost by default with the question you asked, but I think he's probably the guy out of those three that I have the most confidence in and, working himself into the National Football League.
Yeah, no, and I like Clayton Thorson a lot as well, followed by Trace McSorley. I think Lewerke is the best quarterback in the Big Ten, and I don't get the Shea Patterson stuff. Like you said, he puts himself into trouble. I 100% agree with that, and that's something that when I see that stuff from a quarterback, I'm just like, nope. And then I'm seeing it, and then I see the media saying, oh, he's a Heisman hopeful, this and that. I'm like, are you watching the same stuff that we're watching? Like, why are you getting paid to do this?
And again, that might work, on Saturdays, but does it work on Sundays? That's what we're here to talk about. And the fact that a guy can escape, can run around, and can make something happen on a Saturday afternoon, that's not going to work Sunday night when you're going up against the Minnesota Vikings defense.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's not.
And that's we're here to sort of extrapolate, what they're doing now and the traits that they have now into the pro game. And, when he gets pressured off the edge and he tries to run around, it's not going to work for him. You're not going to be able to get away with that. But a lot of these guys, it's the muscle memory. They've always been the biggest or the fastest or the strongest or all three on the football field. Perhaps not at this point, but for most of their lives, and they've gotten away with that stuff. That gets leveled when you get to the National Football League.
Yeah.
The guys are faster. The guys are more athletic than you. Von Miller is going to outrun you to the edge. So you're not going to be able to get away with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds with Michigan. And I could talk hours and hours about them and their nonsense. But the last guy, and then that's it. And it is just a general feel on a guy that I think could be a real sleeper. He might not even go pro, but it's Daniel Jones of Duke. And this guy is a team captain. He's like 6'5", 215, looks the part in the pocket. I think he just looks like the pro style guy. And there's so much with his game that I enjoy. What's your initial thoughts with him as far as some of the games that you've watched?
I'm with you. I look at Jones and I see a quarterback that's like the perfect marriage of the two worlds of offensive schematic football right now between the pro style, stand in the pocket, know you're going to get hit in the chops, stand there and make a throw, and the RPO guy that needs a little bit of athleticism, needs to be able to make those pull or give decisions in the moment. The guy does both of them and does both of them well. I mean, you watch that game against Army, you watch that game against Georgia Tech, you're seeing those RPO type decisions and he's making those quick reads that so many offenses use now. But you're also seeing him stand in the pocket against the blitz, stand in the pocket against pressure, know that he's going to get hit and still deliver with good velocity and good footwork, or at least good enough given what he has going around there, at his feet. Can make some throws with anticipation, can make some click, climb, and throw type moments where we were opening the show with Manny Wilkins. Similar like that, but he's doing it all the time. Mm-hmm. Good velocity, and he moves well in the pocket. Very crisp release, very crisp, clean throw in motion. So he's sound mechanically. Another tiny little thing that doesn't make it into a scouting report unless I notice it, the way he uses hard counts. I mean, how many other college quarterbacks do stuff like that? But he's getting guys to jump. He's getting guys, to at least get out of position with hard counts before the snap, using his cadence, changing his voice. Just the little things like that. We talk about it with Aaron Rodgers on Sundays. He's doing it now. So Jones obviously will have a decision to make. But I think, Jones is a guy, Jackson is a guy we haven't talked about. We might not get to Jared Stidham, but he's another guy that those are also some guys that could make that leap, could get themselves into that round one mix, depending on how they play next year.
Yeah, and again, guys, there's a ton of people that we haven't even talked about. Jared Stidham's another guy, and the main reason why I didn't bring him up was I had Christian Page on yesterday, and we were talking SEC Media Days and stuff like that. We talked about Jared Stidham, so I didn't really want to recircle back to that, but he is another guy. And then there is Jake Browning. You do have to talk about him because odds are he is going pro. There is Tyler Huntley. There is Khalil Tate, who we talked a little bit briefly earlier in the show. But again, Daniel Jones is one of those guys. I think ball security might be somewhat of an issue. There's times that I saw him fumbling and just not really secure in the football. But overall, there's so much to like with him. And maybe he benefits by coming back next year, and maybe he emerges as QB1 for next year. But I think like everything you said is spot on with him. I really enjoy watching him. And I remember when I first put him on and I was just like, this guy is what you want in a pocket passer. Like, this is perfect. And like, he is sporadic with the football, no doubt about it. He forces a lot of throws, so he's got to make better decision making. But when he does that and when it's all put together, it is like the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you have ever had in your life. Yeah. But
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So, Mark, really appreciate you joining me, man. You guys can follow him, like I said, at Mark Schofield. And remember, guys, every Cover One the NFL Draft podcast episode is brought to you by First Down Playbook. First Down Playbook is the #1 playbook resource for football coaches with over 30,000 plays. First Down Playbook is a database of youth, high school, and flag football plays, color-coded with coaching points for every position on every play. So if you've got a quarterback and he's struggling with some of the things that we've already talked about, take his ass, put him to First Down Playbook. That's one place, all the football, firstdownplaybook.com. Mark, really appreciate all your time, man. It's great always getting to talk to you, especially quarterbacks. I hope we can do this again soon.
You got it, Russell. It's always great to be with you. And, you mentioned First Down Playbook. That is a tremendous resource. I couldn't recommend it enough, and people should definitely check that out. It's a fantastic resource. I use it. But, Russell, yeah, man, thanks for having me on. And definitely anytime you want to talk QBs or anything else, just let me know.
All right, man. Much appreciated. As for Mark, as for me, you guys can, of course, follow me on Twitter at RussNFLDraft. This is Cover One the NFL Draft podcast. We will be back next week.